formally meet you.
Yeah.
But I feel like I already know you.
I know, right? I'm literally
This is cute. This is not a mess, but if you tossed everything together, I'd feel bad.
No, I didn't. I just was like, I had stuff set up yesterday, and then I was literally like out with work people.
Yeah, you were fine. I was like, she's too close. I want to come say hi. Nothing else. We talk real quick, and then like,
if we can record if you want.
Yeah, if we don't get it all done, then we can always add later. But
yeah, we can definitely do that. What is up, you guys? This is Amanda Arnier, your host of the Dichotomy Diaries, and we have a very, very special first interview guest to kick off the Dichotomy Diaries interview portion of the podcast. I know that you have been waiting just on the edge of your seats to get a more well-rounded view and maybe a closer look at the monster I married, aka Dick. And you know what? You are gonna get that. Even if you don't want it, you are gonna know him through and through. Every guest that I have on the Dichotomy Diaries from this point forward is going to be someone that had a direct personal relationship with my ex-husband, Dick. What they will be sharing is going to be A, factual, B, their firsthand experience, and C, it is going to come in order of how it played out. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the very first person that I spoke with that gave me any kind of context into the life of which I was living. Are you ready? Let's dive in. And we're live. All right, you guys, the time has come. The first interview. Today I have Kyle returning. You guys got a little bit from him, but now he's here to tell the whole story about what? Like, I guess about how you met Dick, all the craziness, all the things and maybe the secrets that you know. Why don't we start out with an introduction, if you're comfortable with that, and we can start with like also like how did you meet my husband?
Yeah, that would be the point of all this. Well, hello to the audience. I know we spoke before, but this is Kyle. And Amanda, I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, this is the work you're doing and the stories you're telling. I knew a lot about this guy. And I knew a lot when that summer I met him. But I didn't nearly know what would happen and what would come of it. But to be there at the beginning of at least your relationship, mm-hmm. and when you got to meet him, and I was on the other side as a friend, acquaintance, whatever, as we'll get into. So I met Dick online. He had posted a lot on Twitter and posted a lot on Instagram, mm-hmm. as a aspiring fitness model. His Twitter was very much full of financial domination, and that was a big thing on Twitter. It still is a big thing on Twitter and Tumblr. And he also had his own OnlyFans, which is a platform for subscription service where you can post your self-porn. And this was coming out after the pandemic, and it was January. I think I started following him maybe right before, at the end of 2020.
And was he living in Scottsdale at the time, or Arizona at the time, not Las Vegas?
Yeah, he was living in Arizona. So I guess the reason I really started following him, because I'd seen these guys posting crazy stuff, and I was always like curious on like how it really worked, and did these guys really just post crazy things online, mm-hmm. and get people to really give them money, and how many of them were successful and not successful? And he had a good physique. He had a good look to him. And it said he lived in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
And he wasn't real good with the post. He would kept posting photos from his apartment that had window views. I know you talked about these big windows that open up to the street. Well, right behind there, these windows was a famous building in Phoenix.
Like a really distinct historical
Very
building.
distinct, yeah.
Yeah.
A 50-year-old building. It's called the Punch Card Building, and it just looks very distinctive. You know where you're at. I mean, with any skyline photo, you know where you're
Right.
at. But this one was like, and I'm thinking, this is a mile from my house. This guy's close. So, I reached out to him via Instagram and started messaging him. And I'd had a couple accounts and just different ways to reach out to him. And I started inquiring about personal training because I figured that'd be a good way to meet him and then maybe find out about this other part of his life that, like, is this really working? Because of the posts at the time weren't that hardcore. It was very much a soft, like, well, I'm better than everyone else.
Like
and,
a tease
yeah,
almost.
like bow down to me. I'm the greatest, and let me show you how to be number one. Like,
And so,
it wasn't very derogatory at that time.
yeah, like, was your intention with reaching out to him about personal training to, like, start the conversation, and then what was the desired outcome? Like, you wanted to be his friend, you wanted to, like, what was the best case scenario for you at that point?
He had he had a great body, and a lot of it was just like, straight guys like him that are present themselves as straight. They are online trying to make money, and it's in the business called gay for pay or whatever. And I just thought, okay, he's got a great body. Maybe I get to touch him or muscle worship or something like that. And it was more like, let's just see where this goes. And you're around someone with a good physique. And at the time I was like, oh, it's a new year, new me. Let's maybe work out together, hire him as a trainer, spend time with him. I had met other men in the same fashion where they're, want to be your trainer or hang out. And then it turns into a friendship or whatnot.
Right.
And it wasn't that I was seeking out a friendship. I really was like wanted to get behind the scenes on like how is he doing this FitNum thing? How much is he really making as a cam model? And like how can he afford this place that he's staying in?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a cheap apartment, but it wasn't a fanciest place in the world, but it was probably one of the more expensive units for a one bedroom in that building because of the way it had access and could be used as a business.
Ground floor, I think there was like 18-foot ceilings. Like, it was pretty. I mean, I think that it was a relatively new building.
Yeah.
I know that when I remember going there for the first time, I was like, damn, this is nice. Like, it was decorated well, and it was a lot of light, and everything was matchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like, it was the rest of the building, with the exception of those two apartments.
The two on the side, yeah.
Yeah, like, you had to go inside to have access. So those are kind of exclusive.
Yeah, these had access to the street, which, was good and bad. It's in a downtown area, and there would be it was a quiet street, but there was still a lot of cross traffic, cut through traffic, as well as like some maybe homeless and some people walking around, vagrants, and I know that was an issue. The crazy thing was he would get packages delivered there, and they were out like in the open, and so the problem was, as you explained, when he hits the road a lot, or at that time he was also doing life insurance, and that was also intriguing. He was presenting himself as a life insurance guy and a personal trainer, and that was how he made money in a clothing line. Right. And he wanted, when I reached out to him, like, buy if you want to talk to me, just buy all my clothing. Like, it wasn't asking straight up for money. It was like, buy $300 worth of clothing from my clothing line.
Indirectly. And so he was presenting the clothing line to you like, I own my own clothing line, right? Yes. Like, that was the line. Like he was prestigious. Like, it was a long-standing brand. I own my own clothing line. I design clothes. And, like, truthfully, like, we can be honest about this. It was a fucking T-shirt with a logo on it that someone else printed. And he had absolutely no part.
Very little part.
Yeah,
I mean, the only difference was maybe they picked out some more premium of the T-shirts to use. Right. Like, it was better made stuff than but it was nothing different than that, like, American Apparel, like a little nicer.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't cheesy. It was like, it was like decent, and then but it was real basic like designs. And I would tell you this because I got to, in order to be helpful in Dick's life, in order to stay around it, I look back. I had a job that I was working at home all the time, making sales on the phone, and I was in the insurance business, and but I was in Medicare and selling, just healthcare insurance, and it was terrible. And I would tell Dick about this, and we talk about it, and he's like, "Oh, you should come sell life insurance. Come with me." And so, I think the first time I met him, we talked about personal training, sat down. And it took a while back and forth to get the meeting. We got on the phone once, and then I told him, "Oh, you must live really close by. We should meet up." And he told me more or less where he lived, and he was very forthcoming on all the information. He wasn't keeping a guard up on I knew where he lived.
He wasn't concerned about safety.
Correct.
So where did you meet him at for the first time?
At the apartment complex. We met in the lobby, and we met in the lobby, and then we sat down, and then we walked through the gym there. He showed me the gym, and then we sat down and talked about a plan, and then he right away at that time you could tell he really wanted to get the life insurance policies in and information, and so then I think he convinced me to do that, and there was a girl there the whole time that he had a girl with him, and she sat in the other, the living room of the apartment complex area. There's the work from home. There's the community area of this apartment complex, and there's a gym area, and there's mailboxes, and then there's all these couches and tables where people could hold meetings and stuff. And it was kind of very retro. And then up front was some couches, and she sat over there, and she was like an older woman for him. She was in her 40s. You could tell maybe because of the look on her face and the skin. And she had a kid that he talked about, and so he sat there with her. And then I think, if I remember right, he wouldn't take me to the apartment or show me anything at that time. And then the next time we met to work out or whatever, we hung out, and he wanted money for the workout, and so I think I paid him for the fitness plan he was going to write me.
Right.
And knowing that it was going to be cookie cutter and it probably wouldn't be, but I was like, here's the access, and I had the extra cash, so I gave him a couple $100
Yeah.
for this. It was $5.99, and I said, I'll pay $3.99, and whatever. Here's your first $200. When I get it delivered, then we'll pay more. And so it was, he always was finding ways to ask for money like that. But then something evolved in that the car that he was driving wasn't very reliable. And
what was his car? Because I think that I know what the car is, and I think it's really funny. Is it? It's like a tiny little, like a clown car, kind of.
Yeah, like a clown car. I am gonna, I have photos and stuff from, how you can go on your map and.
Oh
see
yeah,
that's
how
are.
I timeline out the whole entire damn podcast.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you literally we're a couple miles from each other. I think what happened was she would go back to Vegas.
Okay, so that's where she was.
Yeah,
from.
she was a Vegas girl, and she would come down, and they would hang out, and then he would need to fly places all the time, and he hit me up for a ride to the airport once, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can give you a ride to the airport and stuff that works. Because then you get that one-on-one time, you can talk to someone, and you give them a ride, you get 10, 15 minutes in the car, and then you get rid of them.
And it's important too, right? Because now he's talking about you doing life insurance. So you maybe want to know, is this legit? And you want to ask all the questions before you actually commit to doing it. Another question I have, did he sell you a life insurance policy?
So he filled out my paperwork, and what had happened was during COVID, I had gotten life insurance, or I had gotten prescribed high blood pressure medication. And then I became my rates would have been too high or something crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't qualify for what he was selling, which you're probably aware of, but your audience might not be. He was working for kind of a final expense company, and someone that did graveyard policies, and then just selling to the poor of the poor, not the regular folks who had good credit scores and things like that. He was selling to people that already had cancer. They're buying a $10,000 funeral policy, or they're buying final expense policies.
A non-medical exam policy.
Yeah, non-medical exam.
What do they call it? Oh, guaranteed issue.
Guaranteed issue. So he sold a lot of that, and then the regular insurance, which he was going to sell me at least a whole life policy or something where they make good commission on. the thing is, when you take like high blood pressure medication or certain medications can show up in your file that block you.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it was that or my credit report, but something blocked. But that car that he would drive was this little like Chevy Spark. Like,
oh my God.
yeah, that's this photo here. I know we're reaching across the podcast desk and showing the T here. But
that is like, if I would have, okay, I'm not going to be superficial here, but like I would have been so taken back if he was like, hey, let me take you out to dinner in that car.
Yeah.
I was actually even like that with the car that he had, truthfully, because it was like not very masculine, and I was like, "What?
Yeah,
like you're hybrid? Okay."
I don't know how we picked that thing out.
Yeah.
Well, I have a story later. I'll tell you how we went and picked up that car at Carvana together.
Oh my God!
And I have the video when he got the car delivered.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
Yeah. So the thing about Dick, so then he would like, I don't know, there was some mystery to him, and so we had kind of the dual relationship of like he wanted to be like the alpha male and the boss and like the stereotype of his podcast or his site and his Twitter, and then like he, here I am, a gay male, like just like kind of like hanging out with him because he's good looking.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is the car kind of matched his voice for me because he has that voice that's like, it's kind of just, like, where did this voice come from? He's got a great singing voice, which
I say. Yeah.
He sings really good, but the regular voice, you're like, it's kind of cringe, and you're like, how, is this what testosterone shots do to people, or the steroids, or whatever? Like, it just something that's happening with his voice where it has like failed to drop all the time, and then sometimes he talks normal, and sometimes he's fine, but we're hanging out all the time. I'm giving him rides, and then like, I don't know, I think it came up like, you want to, like, I was like, okay, no problem giving you a ride, and then he's like said, oh, do you want to look after my place for me? And then like if I have boxes and deliveries. And so on his channel, on his Twitter, he had his wish list and stuff that these admirers would go on and they would buy items and get them sent to his house, and he's getting stuff sent all the time. And so he needed me to drive by and do that, and because like I said, this patio opened up to the street, so if anything sat out there for any amount of time. So I would go do that, and then I think it was the first time he went out of town, he's like, well, if you want to go by my place and just go check on the boxes, or something wasn't done or something. I think he left and he needed, he said something about, oh, there's some stuff in the dryer, and if you want to put that away. I was like, okay. So then like, it kind of was like, okay, what do you need? And he's like, well, I wouldn't mind if you cleaned up the place while I was gone. I have a hot date.
Okay, wait. So he was out of town and you were in his apartment. Did you have a key? Yeah,
he handed me the key right then. I said, well, how am I going to get in? And he's like, oh, I'll give you my key. You're going to pick me up from the airport. Like, when you come, make sure you come pick me up in 2 days. Like, give me the key back.
And how long had you known him at that point?
About a month after we contacted. I'd met him like 3 weeks before.
Okay.
And then like we had talked like 2 or 3 weeks before I got to meet him. So we're like 6 weeks in, but it's like 3 weeks into like hanging like.
And are you talking to him every day leading up to receiving a key, or seeing every day, or?
No, it was like every 3 or 4 days. Like there would go like 5 or 6 days we wouldn't talk. But like in the beginning, it was like we talked, and then I got my workout plan, and then like after work I saw him, and then the following week I think I saw him like 4 times, and then like he told me on like Monday or Tuesday, or I think he told me I might need a ride to the airport, and then it was like that morning he's like, I need a ride to the airport today. Can you take me? And I said, yeah, I'm off work at this time. And I don't know, we worked it out. He had a flight that was later, so it worked.
So it was really, the flights were seemingly last minute flights.
Yeah, very last minute. He was catching a JetBlue flight to Boston.
Oh, he loves Jet.
Yeah, so he was going on JetBlue to Boston. And I'm a big airplane buff, and so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll take you to the airport. He was like grateful because he needed a ride, and like it is logistics. Like you could have rented an Uber or Lyft, but I don't think I ever saw that guy ever get in an Uber or Lyft. So maybe you know.
I feel like
unless it was at the destination, maybe, but not here in Phoenix.
Yeah, not. I mean, there was always somebody to
give a ride,
chauffeur him around. Yeah, absolutely.
So not only so slowly I became his like buddy he'd hang out with, who like he'd be like, oh, take care of these like
household chores.
Yeah. So like, and I'm trying to impress him, and I don't know, just to like get more time to hang out. I don't know what the goal is. And so I come in, and his place was kind of like messy or whatever. Like he said he packed last minute, and then there was something in the dryer. Well, So then he gets a text. He's like, yeah, can you like wash those? The other load. I didn't get a chance to put that in the washer. And like, I have a girl coming over when I get back. Like, can you make the bed or whatever? Like, and it wasn't like terrible because he didn't have a ton of stuff. He just had clothes everywhere.
Yeah.
And the place wasn't like terrible, but it just needed straightening up. And so I just straightened it up for him. Like, like there's like what it looked like before. And then, and then it looked like that when I left. So, of course, when because I was trying to figure this kid out. I did make a copy of the key, and then I returned him, and then the next time he needed help, and then I said something, and then I said, he's like, oh, well, what about the keys or whatever? And I said, don't worry, I made a copy. I told him, that.
And what was his reaction to that?
He was like, oh, good thought, good way to think ahead, way to be resourceful. He's like, yeah, you're turning out to be real helpful. And then, like, I don't know if he said Jeeves, like, or whatever that, like, term you say, like, there's, like, a TV show made.
So, like, a butler?
Yeah. And he was like, you're turning out to be a good Jeeves or whatever. And I was like, okay. I was like, already, like, chauffeuring him around. I took him to dates on Scottsdale. One time he had a flight one night, and he needed to go see a girl, so he drives over, and he was broke, too. Like, broke as could be this time, and didn't have enough money. So he goes to Maple and Ash on a date, and then and he orders, instead of he getting to order a real like meal, he orders the steak fritas, which is the cheapest thing on the menu. It's like the smaller steak with some fries, like a flat iron steak.
Yeah.
And you're at Maple and Ash is like the nice steakhouse in town, one of the nice ones. And then he didn't even like this girl, but he was mad that she wanted him to pay. So
he was.
Yeah, he was pissed.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine. Well, you want to know something? It was probably his idea to go there because he presents himself as the person that knows everything. Yeah. Even though he's new in town, you could be like, why don't you pick a good place? But instead, he's like, I know this great spot.
Yeah.
But I can't pay for it. I have to get the appetizer steak frites.
So so I think it was like I was out of boredom and I wanted to find out more about. So of course, like then you get like when you're like cleaning up for him and helping out. Then I found like he'd leave all this every policy, right? You get all these letters in the mail, the policy. Those are all sitting all over the counter with applications and people's information on them and stuff. And then he had recently, because of the PPP loans, he actually like filed his taxes for the first time ever. And he was like so dumb. I mean, he was filing it with his OnlyFans payments and all this stuff. And the reason I say that, because he had to go get some documents one time, and they were all sitting on the counter. He's like, "Can you put those in?" So I was putting them away in the shelves or whatever. I'm like, and I'm looking here, and it's every bank statement, and you're looking at the last couple of years, and you're like, OnlyFans deposit, OnlyFans, and like the amount of dollars that he was getting from that, I was like, I knew people weren't doing well with it. He was making good money, and a lot of his Dick's income would have been not only the subscription fees and the people that subscribe. People could donate more money to get a special video.
The tips.
The tips. And I mean, I remember buying one or two of the videos too, because I subscribed to his thing to check it out. And it wasn't anything that great. And I want to say, like, you didn't even see him nude in the version that I was seeing. Like, you had to buy extra videos for that. Like, he was just, like, talking to the camera, showing a lot of feet stuff, a lot of muscles, talking down to the people on the camera. But there was one video he had this young, like, African-American guy, like, and he would be worshiping his feet in the video. And he was like, talking down to the kid in person.
Was this, like, I'm trying to picture this video, but is it like he has socks on and this person, like, it's like a carpet? It wasn't in his current place, was it?
No, it wasn't.
It was an old video.
Yeah, it was an old video. I'll show it to you because it's in this one. I don't subscribe to him anymore. But well, actually, it's in my save videos, my purchased.
That OnlyFans account actually was one that he deleted.
There's like this foot video, and then there's one with you know what that looks like. Yeah, I mean,
I know what his dick looks like.
Yeah, and then there's that boy there, and so this is like him and that boy were.
Let me see this. This is great.
Yeah. So the boy takes off his shoes for him, and he has his shoes on. He's taking off the socks. And then the guy's gonna rub his feet. I think he has a hood on. I can't remember.
It's so wild. Well, this looks like. Oh yeah. So the guys.
It might be a hotel room in Vegas.
Yeah,
or something.
like it's like a hotel room.
Yeah, that carpet looks like the Mirage or like the Rio or something. Something's trashy.
So to commentate, I guess this man is like crawling around at his knees and taking my husband's shoes off and sniffing them and sniffing his feet. And his whole face, this man's whole face is in the video. Like,
I forgot,
very not anonymous, like very degrading the fact that he would put this on the internet. Like, if this...
Yeah.
That's
no,
wild.
that was for sale, so it was only like, but it was sold to people like on a for whatever basis or whatever. Yeah, you're right. And then like, yeah, I think that's it. Although, you know what the funny thing is, I scroll down, the next one's from a deleted user. Oh no, all those say deleted users. Okay, so I guess that account's gone. There was one where you pay for the video, pictures of his feet were one of them. I think that was $5, and it's just like he wasn't. He was pretty basic, and in both those OnlyFans videos and his Twitter, that's where those landmark shots were showing up, and it was like, I know where this is at. And when I originally reached out to him on Instagram, right across the street from him there was a quote on the wall from Socrates, and it's something like very interesting.
Yeah.
And I remember when he was giving me attitude one time on the text, and then I texted that back to him, and he's like checkmate, like, no, I know where you're at, like, don't play games here, and so, like, that was the beginning, like, I guess the courtship, trying to figure out, and I'm like, I was just mesmerized, like, how much they're making from this, and how, and I had met other ones in person, too, before, that I, like, had talked to for a while, and I'll be like,
did they try and make you their Jeeves?
No, these guys didn't, one of them was more, like, okay, you'd pay like escorting, and that guy I didn't pay, like, I paid to meet up with him, but I didn't pay to escort, like, we didn't do anything sexual like that. And there was another guy in San Diego I was real curious about, and I drove over there and met him one time, and it was real interesting. Funny enough, that guy now moved to Arizona. He lives like in Queen Creek or something. Like, it's just so funny.
Well, I think it's a really hot. It's a big hot spot for all of adult content creators. Like, there's Vegas, and that's like next level. Yeah. And then there's here, and this is like you're like on JV here,
JV, or it's cheaper to live here, and then you can do other stuff. And here you can kind of blend right in, and you're not in the industry. Whereas in Vegas, you either work in the tourist industry or like service the it's like that's very much the industry there, the tourism thing. And here, tourism's big in Arizona, but there's other stuff to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So the thing, he wanted to be like, so there was all these different paths. I touched on him with the personal training, like wanted to lose weight. I touched on his, like, he wanted me to become you said a lot of people, he was training people to become life insurance agents. And this company that you work for, they would like get paid to train people and bring people in.
They'd pay for your test.
Yeah, they'd pay for your test and stuff. And so sometimes I think it was funny because when you and me first started talking again, when I realized, things were over with you and you were just kind of like led me loosely into like, hey, we're breaking up and he's still being me. You didn't nearly give me the story, but you were like, there's more to come. And like, I'm sorry that we met each other and, like, whatever. And I'm like, I'm sorry I didn't warn you better.
Yeah.
And so, but the things where I would drive him this was the deal. I think this is what cemented the thing. His car blew up one time on the way to Vegas. And so he left town, and that little car that he was driving, the reason he was driving that little car, because he was going back and forth a lot to Vegas, and it had really good gas mileage. And so
I bet it looks like a Hot Wheels car.
Yeah, it's a Hot Wheels car. So that thing blew up on him, and he ended up limping it back to town. He called me one day, and he's like, I need to get to Vegas. He had some appointments and stuff. I didn't really know. I just thought he had life insurance appointments and the girlfriend that I knew existed.
Right.
And so he said she would drive halfway down to get him. And I think I volunteered because here at AA, I'm getting to spend time with him and like longer. And you get.
I mean, that's what, 2 hours?
Yeah. I drove all the way to like Wickiup or whatever, like the pie place, and I was like, okay, I'll drive you up. But like when you think about it, driving halfway to Vegas and then back, it's like you drove to Vegas.
Right.
It's like, because I still took 4 hours,
it's
I drove back to town and then but I was like, I think I came back and there was like a brand new Costco out on the west side of town that I wanted to see, and I got gas at, and like, I like made it a trip or whatever. And like, so when I came back, it all worked out. But the point was, I drove up and I saw the girlfriend again. We had seen each other before, and the kid was in the car. And like, he had to put all his stuff in my car, and then I drove him up, and I don't think like, he liked the road tripping, but he also was like, he didn't like being not in control. And
Okay.
like here he is, like I'm driving him and he's still like, and we're heading out to the desert together. It's like not like an open freeway highway. We're gonna be on a 2-lane road together, and it's like, and then he was a little hesitant with, I think he even wanted me to drive faster or something, and I'm like this is fast enough on this road.
So, clarify, was
Yeah.
the girlfriend in the car with you and her kid and Dick?
No, the girlfriend drove down from Vegas.
Okay, so
to
when
take him to the
you-
other house. So we had to, when we got to this little gas station, he had to take everything out of my car and put it in her car.
Okay.
And when we pulled up, the kid was in the car. So she's like, okay, good, you're here. She was waiting to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't leave the kid in the car. So like when we got there, then we took over like moving the stuff over.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then I locked my truck and then I went in to go to the bathroom. And that's when I like saw her again. And like, I think we said hi or whatever. Like we hadn't met a couple times.
Yeah.
And I think she wanted to learn. She wanted to know more from me. Like, what is he up to? What is he doing? But she didn't really ask. Like,
You want to know something?
Yeah.
And she's going to have her own episode, but that is 100% the case. She was very, very curious about you. And she had inquired and was like met with like a stone wall.
Yeah.
Like there was no information that he would give about you, which, I mean, he keeps the women that he's with like in this like locked cage. Like they're not, like how he did with me, right? Like he was like, no, block him.
Yeah. And then you just didn't. And I was like,
No, I
and
wouldn't.
it was great. And it was like, I would have been okay if you had blocked me on. The thing was, I think I followed you on. We were friends. We were friends on Facebook, and I was like, I barely even know this girl. But I'm like, oh, it's like his girlfriend. I'll follow her and then see what happens with her. The love of his life.
The reason that I initially had looked you up because I remember him saying your name, so I looked you up, and I was like, okay, so because I hadn't met any friends besides church friends, and I was like, I could be perceived as like crazy, or I could be perceived as like, hey, I want to get to know my person's friends. And like, I want, like, what if it was, we were having a party and I wanted to invite you, how would I get in touch,
Yeah.
And so that was the initial, I guess, ad. But after he had said, no, block him, that's when I was like, oh, I'm adding him on Instagram too. Like, I'm not, like, I'm making sure that we're connected because there's something fishy about this situation. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and I had like stupid. Yeah, I have other Instagram accounts for fun, and that they're just like fun accounts. And he had been featured in one of those, and he had reached out one time. And so this is how our thing went. And that car ride was instrumental to like. Then he left, and this car's now lived along. So now when he came back, like I'm gonna give him rides when Then I think he did Uber and Lyft some. Now that I think about it, but then and when he wanted to be coy, he'd come back to town. There actually would go weeks where we wouldn't talk.
Really?
A couple weeks in like March after I think that incident happened, I was still working in March. So April kind of went by and it was like I didn't see him as much, like 3 weeks, and then like my bribe for him was always like he really liked this Flower Child restaurant. There was a meal there.
Yeah,
and
he loves it. He loves the chicken and mashed potatoes and mandarin oranges.
Yes, mandarin oranges. And so like I learned his order. Well, his order's like in my my Flower Child app because this was still the pandemic. You would order and go get the food. Like I could go eat there and sit outside, but this was still like and I would go. I had my salad that I always get there, and he's like, "Oh, that's healthy for you. It's in your macros." And so he's like positive reinforcing that like the weight loss and
he's really manipulating you into getting him food.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would get it and then bring it by the house, and then like. And he liked, so it's just the little things. And like, he really was obsessed with carrot cake. And so then like, they had good carrot cake at AJ's, which you were talking about the iced tea recently in one of your episodes, I think.
I love AJ's.
Yeah, I would think, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. I think episode 6, you were talking about the iced tea.
I do, yeah. They're like spring cherry, green, whatever. Oh my God, it's my favorite.
So, so that was it. It was like that. And then we would go over to get Akasi bowls at this place. Oh, I drove him a lot to the gym.
Berry Divine.
Yeah, Berry Divine. We'd go there, and he had a card there, and like all the and they all knew him and give him a good deal. And it was a little pricey. And like sometimes I went, like he wanted me to pay once, and I was like whatever. And then like, but he would buy me that pretty often. So sometimes he would pay, and then like we went to we go to Breakfast Club and eat together at the Biltmore he'd go work out, and he would buy me breakfast and stuff like. And so it wasn't like when I did the math on all the like who spent more. Yeah, I spent some time on it, but there was a very much a give and take, and there also was like, I was able to look at my Cash App because that's how I like to get money, and I looked at it, and I was actually ahead of the game because I'll let you know in a little bit how we had to pay rent one time.
Yeah.
So make sure we talk about that. But let's kind of get to the point where you kind of understand how I know him, right? And how things are going with him. And we're friends. And so what's happening in Phoenix at this time is the Phoenix Suns are going to be in the playoffs. It's running a little bit late. It's a little later in the year because the season had started late because of the thing. And Phoenix had just added the online gambling and all this stuff. I remember talking to him about that, and he was being fairly good in March and April, and he wouldn't. He was not participating. He didn't have those apps on his phone, and he wasn't doing the gambling, and I wasn't allowed to talk to him about it. We weren't.
Did you know that that gambling was a problem?
Yeah, he had mentioned that was one of the reasons he left Vegas, and he mentioned it more like, this is my demon, and I faced it, and it really helped destroy my life in Vegas. He also told me about some felonies and like things some legal troubles that he'd been in, that like he had to take a plea agreement with the daughter. The daughter's photos around, and he'd said like he swore off custodial. He gave up his rights to her and let her go have a good life because of like it was part of the plea that she wouldn't testify in the case or whatever, like some sort of exchange like that he explained. And I might have the details of it wrong, but it seemed like she was trying to get a clean break away from him, and she didn't want anything to do with him. But he said he'd run into her at the gym. Sometimes he'd go to the Lifetime Fitness up there, and she was a member of the Lifetime Fitness. And so occasionally he would see the ex-wife, is what he was saying. Or I don't think he was even a wife with her. I think that was just the mother of his child. But
no, they were actually married.
Okay.
But also, pause here for a second. So this is like all of that information is very important for the listeners to remember. So, if we talk about him not having the rights to his daughter, how he explains it to people is very much either he was doing the right thing by giving up his rights, or B, which is I feel like the more frequently used story, is that he was a victim, that he was blackmailed into doing so. So that's really important to note. And then I will say, he had mentioned to me numerous times about how when he would go to Las Vegas, it wasn't that he would just run into his ex-wife and his daughter, or the child that came from him. He was doing it intentionally.
I'm sure he was.
And he would hang out in the cafe when he knew that they were there. And that is, you're starting to paint this picture of somebody who is deceitful and also like creepy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that's
stalker and manipulative, and it's kind of with his whole character. And I was definitely, I knew when I was being manipulated somewhat. See, because I had like, and I didn't know the whole story, but I also knew I was fully aware of what I was doing and where I participated and what I was getting out of it or whatever, and what I wasn't. And I think I definitely know I was bored, because then by that summer, things were starting to heat up, and I had left my job. Had a different job.
What month is this?
So I think I left that job in April, I know. And then he was going to try to get me into the life insurance thing. And then I did some other stuff, collected some money, and then I didn't need to work for a little while. And then by summer I started needing to work again, and so he, I don't remember what I was doing. Maybe I started doing deliveries or something. Mm-hmm. I did something just short term, and he was very like trying to get me in, and then that was about the time all those games played. The playoffs started in Phoenix, and I started going to these other, like I joined a men's social group in June and then July. So I started getting real busy. Yeah. And I want to say his birthday's in July, right?
It's the end of June, which is when we met. And so I want to say that we actually watched Suns playoff games together. So if they were in the playoffs, I mean, now you're talking we're in June and you're in this part of the story.
Yeah, exactly. So the playoffs had started like maybe a month before that, and this is the deal. We're hanging out, and then all of a sudden he would just go to the games. Like, oh, I'm taking this girl to a game. I'm taking this girl, and like we had already, remember we had that Maple and Ash story. I want to say that took place late April, early May-ish. And then May had another, because about that time, once the car broke down and he no longer could get back and forth to Vegas, he broke it off with that girl. Like, that girl, she'd come down once or twice. I think that was the deal why I cleaned this place. That girl was going to come to the house, and he said she was going to come down and pick him up, or she was going to come down early. He's like, I ran out of the house late. I had this flight. Can you go help me out? And I think I had joked about it before with him. And then he was like, well, here's your opportunity. And so then it became a thing. Like, he would want his laundry done, and like just once every couple of weeks, like come over. Then one time he came over and like he's like, we got to get this place in shape, and so he let me help. Like, I helped him clean. The funny thing was he did a lot of work. I just helped with like the straighten up the closet. We took the trash out. He wouldn't take the trash to his regular dumpster. He would go across the street to the office building and
because it was
throw it over
closer.
there. Yeah, it was closer. But I think I might have pulled that move too. But he was very brazen, because one time he threw all sorts of stuff over there, and I was like, oh, right when he moved out, like something broke, a desk or that piano that was out there.
Piano, yeah.
Yeah, I think he might have just left the piano there. I don't remember.
I think he tried to wheel it across the street and it didn't work because it had like a broken wheel.
Yeah, I did. That was parked across the street when he moved away.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on, and right before he told me about you and this and that, he had a couple weeks before he'd gone on a date to Scottsdale, and he had me drop him off. And it's funny because I knew some of the guys at this party. Like, was just aware of them. I wasn't like friends with them, but it was some birthday party for this chick, and this chick wanted to go to a birthday party. So he goes over to this birthday party and gets dropped off, and he didn't drink, but here he is taking a bottle of liquor for the host. Takes a nice bottle of liquor, and then he sits there. So he gets to the party and sits down, and the guys are all nice to him. He didn't know anyone there. And he had some sort of social anxiety, I could tell. And he's like, I'm still like, people like me, they'll talk to me. So he talked to a few people, hung out. This girl shows up late. Like, she had told him originally she was going to pick him up, or they would show up together. He was there an hour, but he was like on time to this party. And the girl didn't show up till like an hour and a half later. She gets there, walks in with her friends. She doesn't immediately come over and say hi to him. So his story says. But this was real because he was that pissed afterwards. And so she didn't say hi to him, didn't apologize for being late, none of that. And she just like joins the party and then like has him like, hey, come over here and do this. And he was just totally pissed by it. And he was done. He ended up leaving the party about 30 minutes later on his own. Because I said, oh, what time do you want picked up? I've already left. I was like, oh. And he's like, I already got someone else to give me a ride or whatever. And so he tells me, you won't believe this girl. She tells me that we're going to be ready at 4:30. I'm ready. I'm in my dinner jacket. I'm in my jacket. And he dressed in his blazer. And I'm ready to go. She's up in North Scottsdale doing hair still. We can't. They're just going to Uber down together. Like, I told him we'd come pick him up. He would like volunteer me to pick them up.
Services.
But they were so far away. And he even, after I dropped him off, he offered me to go get him again. And I was like, oh, I'll go get him. And he was going to give me $20 or something for gas. And I was like, whatever. And he didn't want that. They said they'd Uber down. They didn't want some strange
How much you want to bet that he called you his personal driver?
I bet he did.
100%.
100%.
Because how awesome does that sound when you're trying to pick up a chick, right? I'll send my driver for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if then I picked him up one time. I took him over to his veneer appointment. The guy had decent teeth before. Like,
they were great.
You could see it, but even in the photos before, they weren't bad. And he didn't have any reason to go get. He fucking went and got veneers, and I'm sure he financed them because he financed them, and then I'm sure the dentist probably got paid, but the finance company never got paid.
Oh no, I still get the bills.
They're not cheap. Veneers are not cheap.
I think it ended up being like $8,000. He actually got a really good deal because he only has the top done.
Yeah.
But I think he priced it out, and I'm pretty sure that the dentist was actually a Mormon dentist.
Oh my!
And so there was like some brotherhood. No, I think it was a girl actually.
It was a woman. It was
a girl Mormon doctor, and I think it ended up being like $8,000.
Yeah.
Care credit.
Yeah, care credit. Yeah.
Sorry, care credit.
Sorry, care credit. Hashtag. She probably didn't go on her missionary mission. She went to medical school.
Yeah.
So, but this is the deal. So yeah, he would talk about the boys and his thing. And so then he tells me, he had a date with a girl. Twice he'd gone to the Suns game, and these tickets were like $400 a piece, $600 a piece. His dad came to town. His dad came to town right before his birthday, and
his dad came to town for his father's birthday.
Oh, Father's Day. Yeah.
It was probably Father's Day. In between Father's Day and his father's birthday, which is the week of like the 18th to 19th.
Yeah, this was right before Dick's birthday. So they were going to celebrate their birthdays together. He was all proud. So, but I mean, I kid you not, the dad flew in on the morning flight on Saturday and was out by lunch on Sunday. Like, he was barely in town. They went to the baseball game together, and I'm sure Dick slept on the couch and maybe Dad slept on the bed.
Yeah, I think that's what he told me.
The flight was like at 7:30. You know, the flight was early. He had to take his dad to the airport, and so his dad was in and out. But I remember, I think I helped him clean the apartment before that one time to get it ready. He was so nervous because his dad was coming and all this, and you'd ask him questions about his dad. You know, then I looked up his dad online. This personal. He said he did insurance up there, and his dad seemed more legitimate in the insurance business up there than his son was. And I could see how maybe his dad would be embarrassed of the kind of insurance his son was doing. And
I truthfully don't think that it was about the insurance.
Yeah,
it was about, I mean, if you think about it, it's about all of the nude videos that if you type in their name, you've tarnished a whole entire family name, a whole entire family who's very, very loyal to the Mormon church.
Yeah.
So I think, truthfully, that visit, because I remember when I was there on the 23rd, there was a balloon still floating, barely floating, but floating.
Yep.
And he had shown me the pictures. I think they got front row at the Dodgers game, and he was so excited that he got to pay for that for his dad.
Yeah.
That was like one of the last times that his father had come in intentionally to see him.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's sad, but...
Okay, so another part of the story you bring up, and, with his online character, Dick's online character was this Brett Michaels.
Michaels, yeah.
And it's spelled with a M-Y-C, And so in the Twitter game, a lot of these online masters or online alpha males, they're masters to the subs that not only subscribe, like they're master and submissive, they're masters and slaves, and the online financial slaves send money to their gods or whatever.
Right.
And so the thing is, your account has to get a lot of activity, and these masters, people like Dick don't have time to sit there online on Twitter all day long and have a life, go to the gym and all. So they'll get another boy to do all the talking on their behalf. And so someone else gets all the passwords and everything. And what had happened to him, so he says, and this part I believe, because there are some old accounts out there that that they're still up there.
Oh, it's true. This person does exist. This person is
someone
crazy.
Someone blackmailed him and then told all his family what he did and told the church and all this, and I remember seeing letters.
Oh, that's not true.
Oh, okay, didn't tell the church. Okay.
Yeah, all of the church and his family had known about everything.
Yeah.
Like
before.
Yeah,
they're probably the best. He's kind of sloppy with this stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think he tells too many lies. You're gonna crisscross him once in a while. The person that was like his admin slave, right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Dick got kicked off of PayPal for doing escorting stuff. And then he was using this person's Twitter and this person's PayPal to receive funds.
Yes. And
this person, which I know you're listening, fuck you, dude. Seriously, hate this motherfucker. He didn't give Dick some of the money. Yeah. And so Dick was like, he stole from me.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't pay him.
Yeah, in the evolution of Dick's life, there are some things that he did that he got fucked over, maybe, or some with the legal system and his parents and at the divorce, and it changes people. And something like this where we're dabbling and you're making a little bit of money doing and there's tons of people I know that present themselves on OnlyFans and make a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. But the moment someone then starts manipulating you and blackmails you, puts you in a unique position, I think that shape maybe it turned him even more into the dark side, and he put up the walls differently, and he also didn't care about people.
Not at all.
He started losing it. Like, maybe he had been burned so many times by caring for people, and he felt like people were using him just for his body and his looks. And then, and I'm not giving excuses. I'm just saying I think there's an evolution here, and we each catch him because you at least caught enough glimpses of the real guy that you wanted to be with this guy at one point and you liked him and he gave you enough of the real stuff. and you know when the curtains were down a little bit or when he was vulnerable, and then you also know when like he was playing like doing the stuff like you would tell your wife, you know, happy wife, happy life. So you're giving up on certain things, and I'm sure you knew the difference. And then there was times when he wanted to get away with something. You're probably, oh yeah, he's manipulating me. Like
I
you didn't
think
know it at
that
the time, but
I think that that's an interesting perspective, and I like toss it back and forth a lot because, one of the topics that I frequently talk about, like when I take videos and stuff for social media, is this idea that like, okay, so you're with a narcissistic partner or sociopathic partner, okay, and they present themselves as person A, and so you fall in love with person A. Well, then you meet person B, and what is the real person that this human being is? Well, if I fell in love with person A, I'm going to assume that person A is who he really is, and that circumstances or just events, what jaded happenings, whatever it is, moved him into person B. I don't know if that's the case.
yeah,
I truly think that person A is the fabrication and person B is who he really is. And so it's weird because
yeah,
as you get someone to fall in love with the facade, like the mask that you're putting up, now I am an advocate for person A. So if he did something bad to you,
yeah,
not only was he like, I'm a good person, I was like, no, he's person A. He's that person,
yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes, yes,
So it's weird because the manipulation keeps the fake person alive.
yeah,
And so, you say like, oh, you would see like who he really was at times. It's like, I don't think we really know. And I
yeah,
also don't think you said too that he stopped caring about people. I truthfully don't think that he cares about people.
yeah,
Like because there had like if you just take the little facts that we know right now, it's like you gave up the rights to your daughter. One of the things that like people would never do.
yeah,
Like that like how do you do that? It's your own flesh and blood. How could you do that?
yeah, yeah,
Your parents. He would always talk down about his mother.
yeah.
Like that's your mother.
Yeah, but people with the child thing, you say lots of people give their child away for adoption so they can go like have a better life.
True.
Lots of people go through divorces and and a messy one at that, and like sometimes they have to take a step back even if they don't want to. And who's to say he even wanted a child at that age, or whether
Yeah, I
or he
mean
was
that's
mature
fair.
enough for it? And I think he knew. I'm not. I don't know. And but the thing was, he plays victim to some people, and other people he's like, oh, I did it for good purposes, and so I think
Yeah.
that we all have person A and person B. We all have our facade that we put onto the world. We all, especially now with social media, we all have our a reel, our
Our
highlight
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 reel,
reel,
yeah.
and then you have the real truth. And the highlight reel is in our lives, but I think he got so caught up in the highlight reel that sometimes he wanted to live in that persona, and he really wasn't. He wasn't successful at these things. He was good at manipulating people. He could always go hustle up money. He's good, a good salesperson that could hustle up money. That's great, but does that mean they're got their life in control? Are they in control of their own addictions? That the gambling addiction at whatever he has it pretty bad, and that can ruin his life. And
Oh no,
and
I
it
mean
showed him the dark
it
side.
it totally has ruined his life. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ruined multiple people, including my life.
Yes.
And I also think he is an actor, which,
Yeah.
salesperson, actor, however you want to play it, like you're selling someone
Yeah.
what's not the truth to believe it as the truth. But also, like, I think that he truthfully, like, did not know if he was Dick or he was Brett,
Yes. I agree.
right? Because
Yeah.
although the mansions and the sitting in other people's Bentleys and money and all of this fake wealth that he shows as Dick,
Yeah.
Brett is really the alpha, right?
Uh huh.
Because he shows vulnerability when he's Dick.
Yeah. 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 He
Cries
does.
on the videos,
Yes.
talks about his failures, seems maybe remorseful,
Yeah.
a little bit, but if he switches over to Brett, there's none of that.
None of that. There's nothing he could do wrong as Brett. He is that God complex, that alpha complex. Whereas, and when he's Dick and he's talking about insurance and other stuff, like he is telling stories and vulnerable, making it seem like he cares for this little old lady that needs the insurance. Oh, she lost her husband. Oh, we don't want this to happen to her family. Like, he figures out ways to play with people's heartstrings and show that he cares and use the church to his advantage at times.
Oh my gosh,
which is, crazy that to me that the local church here, he would go to these meetings all the time, and I never he never tried to drag me to one or anything like that.
It's
like
super surprising.
But I was thinking that he wanted to keep I was more while I knew him in real life as Dick. I was more attached to the online persona, and I knew of all that life, and he didn't want to mix the two. And he had told the bishop, and one letter he left out one time, and the letter was like he was swearing all this stuff off, and he was swearing off gambling and getting his life in order, and it was like that letter you'd write with your high school counselor.
He was on probation with the church when I met him because they had a hearing about knowing, essentially finding all of the stuff on the internet and quote unquote gay stuff.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of gay stuff. Yeah.
Like I remember seeing the letter as well, and even the first time I went to church, I was really like, why aren't you taking sacrament? And he was like, well, because you can, and I want to make sure, I don't want you to feel left out, and then I look and I find this letter later, and I'm like, oh no, you couldn't take sacrament.
Yeah.
So it was probably one of those things where, like, because he was on probation, if he brought you in and people, you know what I mean? Like,
how do you
people,
know him? And
yeah, exactly.
It would just be too much. And so that's why he also like sometimes kept me distant, but I got that part of it. And I also could tell I was trying to figure out if he was closeted or he was just gay for pay or like what he got out of it. And I think he was just the money that got created from it helped fuel his gambling addiction.
Yeah, it's a sick cycle.
And I know I could identify some of it because I feel like when I was younger, I had an inkling for gambling, but I would probably gamble with money I shouldn't have, or I get a tax return and take it all to the casino, something stupid. But I always can pay my rent. But when you work in the industry, like bartending or server, and you earn your cash tips, and then after work you go and you gamble and you lose that money, and then you go do it again. You'd work, you'd lose your tips. So it was just kind of like, but you always knew the next day you could go make more money, and so that was easy. But it's like, those times where you're like, oh shit. But I also know I can just stay out of there. And same thing with anything else. So it's all willpower, and I know I have control over it, but I could see how it sucks you in. And so I could identify my previous habit and carelessness to his current addiction. And right at the time my cousin was going through, is still an alcoholic, but was going through stuff like that. And so you're seeing the same signs. Totally. And stuff started showing up from some of the online bookies and stuff. And then when Arizona opened all those apps, I was like, oh my gosh, he moves away from it to get away from the casinos.
Yeah, you almost kind of feel bad for him. Like almost. Because I thought about that. I've thought about this oh my God, for way too many hours. But what would the life really have been like had Arizona never passed any of the gambling apps?
Yeah.
Like, because if truly he went there,
why did he really come here?
Yeah,
what was the truth? Hopefully, one of your girls probably can tell the story that maybe he came here for a girl. Maybe. It wasn't that he was. Well, I knew he was running away from something, and so I don't think Nevada was ready to license him for insurance, so he had to come down here.
That's a good point. I didn't think about
that. That is the truth. And I think later, once he had the license here, they gave him a reciprocal license there. But Nevada was something had happened, and he wasn't going to be able to get a license in Nevada.
I'm pretty sure that it was because of the felony. I think I wrote like the insurance board or whatever it was a letter. I think that's what we did there. So yeah. Okay. So where are we? Let's get back on track. Where are we?
Okay. Sons are playing. He's dated all these girls. I've given him rides. Now the one shows up. This one girl shows up that he starts talking about. He had no reason to convince. This is where I believe some of it. And he was like, this one's special. And I'm like, what? And he's like, okay, I think I met her. and stuff like that. And he's like, and because we were kept in our separate bubbles, like he didn't have no reason to like be lying to me, but I noticed the changes in him and physical changes. And so whether
Like what?
like he just seemed like so fluttered from it. Like I could see the butterflies when he would talk about this woman, and that when in the days that followed of originally meeting you. And I want to say the next day because it was his birthday, and he had nothing planned. And this is a guy who had planned all these crazy games and spent money here, and he would gone here, and from February till June when I knew him, and there had been about a month or two. There had been like 3-week periods where I didn't see him. Now, when I hear your story now in its entirety, I know now where he's off dabbling in Boston or doing this over here. And sometimes he was doing life insurance buying leads. And other times he was just probably going back to his old ways in Vegas, But digress, here he is. He told me he had a date. And he told me before, he's like, I have this date. I met her online. I've been talking to her for a while. I think she could be the one. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I think in a sense, maybe he had already convinced himself you're the one. You show up, treat him like so nice. You're so lovely to him. He said only good things. And
he said personal stuff too,
yeah,
didn't he?
yeah.
I want you to share that.
So then he, the first night he tells me she came over on my birthday and we had a date. And this is a guy who'd been telling me I hadn't seen women being tramps through the apartment. He'd go maybe hung up with other people, but there wasn't other than the Vegas girl who had to stay with him from out of town. There wasn't any other women that I was seeing, and I live a mile away. And anytime I want to drive somewhere, I can go down the main street in town. I drive by. I can see what the hell's going on at his place.
Yeah,
kept the windows open half the time, and so I knew if there was stuff going on or who was around. But he had you over, and the date went well. It sounded like, and he tells me then the next day we're having breakfast or. Not breakfast, like lunch, or maybe it was that day or later that day. And he's like, dude, I don't know what it is. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, she's a bleeder. She bled on I think I broke her. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, she bled all over my bed. And I was like, oh. I was like bad? And was she out on her period? No, I just think I'm too big for her. And I'm like, I was like, Dick, I mean... What? I'm like, I've seen the pictures on the internet, and I was like, it's nice, but I was like, you're not that big, you're, so I'm kind of lowering, because there was conversation between the two of us, we're still two guys, one gay, one not gay, but we're still gonna give each other shit about stuff. We had the joking stuff going on, and here he is opening up about a date, and so this is stuff you tell your friend, a guy friend, you don't tell your maid this, and maybe your hairdresser, you have the conversation. Right. And which we did have this school bus that come by and give us haircuts. Yeah, he knew a guy and we'd get haircuts outside. The barber would come to us. This is how vain this guy is. And but he's telling me that you were a bleeder and all this stuff and very personal stuff and and he had to, and then he's like I'm like, okay, well, was it good? Oh, it was pretty good, and but I don't know if she can handle me. But he's like she's probably new to sex. And I'm like, well, you hadn't had it in a while. Oh, no, I get it when I want. And I don't really need to have sex. I can just self-pleasure. And I'm like.
You guys, wait, what? Let's rewind.
No, I just think I'm too big for her. And I'm like.
I almost spit my tea across the room when I heard that. Honestly, I don't know what's worse. You know what? Actually, maybe this part is worse.
She's probably new to sex and...
You can't make this shit up. You really can't. Listen, I hope that you guys have enjoyed Kyle's episode, part 1. You'll have to wait till next week for the second part. But I told you I was going to give it to you straight, raw, unfiltered, no matter if it made me look like an asshole, embarrassing, I don't care. And this is what you get in the first part. God, I remember my face when he told me that. I was like, huh? What? Oh, I'm so happy we're at the part of the podcast where I can actually like laugh about things, like truthfully, and not out of just pure embarrassment. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to episode 21 for the plot. Kyle will be back next week to give you the remainder of his truth. Sit tight. I'm your host, Amanda Arnier, and this is the Dichotomy Diaries. See you next week.
It's not over yet till you taste regret. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. It's not over.